I was really interested to see, and there's a story that I've been following about, particularly Nunda, because I live close to that area, and there's a lot of really nice heritage-type homes in that area. And there are a lot of fears there. If you drive through the Nunda area, you can see cranes up everywhere, as you can now through Chermside as well, and through Kedron. Cranes everywhere as we're putting up a lot of high-rise. And I read an article that quotes heritage consultant Mary Ann Taylor, who in fact joins us. G'day, Mary Ann.
Hello, Mary Ann.
Hi.
Nice to be talking to you.
Nice to be here.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on the show.
A bit of a concern about what's happening with some of these heritage homes, isn't it? I mean, it must break your heart.
It does. I guess it's tricky. I mean, I can understand we need to have development. We can't keep everything as a museum, but I think we need to make sure we get the balance right as well. And it is very tricky, and it is hard to see some of these beautiful old homes, and they're quality builds as well. They're old hardwood timber and good quality materials as well as construction. So it is sad to see them go, and in a lot of cases they're being replaced by something that's just quick and cheap, and even though it houses a lot more people. So it's a bit tricky.
Yeah, and I know in some areas that they'll look at a whole area, and you can't look at it that way. You really have to look at the individual properties, because you can quite easily have a really nice old heritage home right beside a brick home, as an example. You can't it's not one size fits all.
That's right, and I think probably the Brisbane City Council does a pretty good job in some ways of allocating character housing areas. I think though that it probably would be what I'd like to see, I guess, would be them looking at the whole streetscape like that. So you do have areas where an entire, street full of old houses is still retained as well, instead of having the new builds in amongst the others.
Yeah, well, I know going back 10, 15 years, the Brisbane City Council, when they looked at their streetscape for, say, places like Paddington and Red Hill, they were really particular about streetscape. But you get into some of the outer suburbs, like Chermside I mentioned, Kedron's another one, even out in
on the
Nunda.
south side.
They don't seem to be, they don't seem to be as focused on streetscape as they used to. Is that a fair comment?
I agree. A lot of this, I actually live in Salisbury, and there's a lot of development going on there. I think that the council's really pushing for increased subdivision of land, because they're looking to do a lot of infill development to stop the spread of the suburbs so much. But what that means is you get these big double blocks that have the house in the middle, you get them subdivided, and the house either goes or gets shoved to the side, and then you get a new build in amongst all the old ones.
Yeah, but even that, Marianne, like I live next door to me, what was a character street is now being rezoned a new city plan. It's LMR, and a house that's 1924, they now can apply to knock it down, whereas before that was completely protected. And now that can go, not only shove units behind it, but it may completely disappear from the street.
I know. It's really hard to see, and I find it difficult to watch it going on. And I think, unfortunately, though, even if something is in a dwelling house character area, it doesn't necessarily guarantee it's protected either. So I guess, until there's a way to make retaining a single dwelling financially viable and attractive to developers, then we're going to keep seeing this. But I hope there seems to be a lot of interest, and a lot of residents, I think, are very much keen on retaining the houses and the big yards. And I mean, this is the character that makes Brisbane the great place to live that it is, and what attracts so many people to move here from down south. So I think we need to be careful that we don't lose what makes Brisbane so special as well.
Are we building anything nowadays that we will, in, say, 50, 60 years' time, think is heritage?
Look, I think so, but I think that there's definitely a much less focus on quality and iconic design, I guess, would be particularly in these unit developments that are going up everywhere. I think they're done sort of in a way that's, a lot of prefabrication, which probably won't lead to the kind of significant factors you look at for heritage listing. In other cases, there are some iconic buildings around that could probably be listed straight away right now for their associations and links. So, yeah, it's an interesting thing to discuss, actually. And one area that I'm particularly interested in is the post-war housing, because I think that is a little bit undervalued as well. But
they're great houses.
They're solidly built.
Solid.
And from a social perspective, in terms of, I say in that article about we want to retain evidence of our, the social factors that these houses represent. And post-war housing, and particularly Housing Commission and Fibro houses, they tell incredible tales about our history in Brisbane.
Yeah, and see, that's the point I was heading towards is that, what is going to become the new range of heritage. We're just about out of time.
Oh, we
are,
are
in fact, out
unfortunately.
of time. I could talk to you forever.
I could too. It's very close to my heart, Marianne, happening right next door to me at the moment. It can devastate a street.
It does,
It
and certainly
can.
polarises the members of the street sometimes too.
Oh, yeah. The poor developers turn up in their ute and they cop it from everyone in the street, as they should. Thanks for joining us, Marianne.
Thank
nice
you
of
so
you to
much
come out
for
to
having
Ekka.
me.
What
Thank
food
you.
will be your choice this afternoon?
I've already stuffed myself on a fair bit, but I think there's always room for a Dagwood dog.